Hey guys, welcome back to the Blue Podcast. This is the Gradient Show. Today I'm joined by Ben and Brad from Full Time Focus. How are you boys doing?
Good, thanks.
Yeah, I'm good, mate. I'm good.
Good, that's what I like to hear. Today we're bringing you episode 3 of She-Hulk, just our review. Obviously, we've done this weekly. I wasn't available last week, so Mac took the lead on that one. But unfortunately, he's going to be in Greece for the next couple of months, so you guys won't see much of him around here. We did drop a couple of football videos that Ben and Mac has recorded a few days ago, so you can definitely go and check that out if that's more your cup of tea. But I think for today, we'll just dive straight into She-Hulk. And I don't think there's any way to sort of discuss and get into the details of this episode without just addressing the fact that 50% of the plot was revolving around Megan Thee Stallion, which was an interesting choice. But I'm sure, well, Ben, I know you very well now in your Marvel opinions, and I'm sure you'll definitely sway heavily towards a negative opinion with that. And I think I'm, for once, going to agree with you and probably say that Marvel have, it's not their best work, that's for certain. I think the internet has certainly shown that it's had quite a bit of backlash. It was a bold move, but in my opinion, it didn't work for me, and it definitely detracted from any sort of. So I understand that this is a comedy show, but it definitely detracted from some of the more interesting storylines. Having Wong, Abomination. I mean, we've seen Daredevil in the trailers, and it's 3 episodes in, and he's not showing up yet. So for me, having an entire storyline based upon Megan Thee Stallion did not cut the mustard. But we're here to hear your two's opinions as well. So Ben, let's go, mate. What did you think about that?
I mean, to be honest, because I'm already not really fussed about the series, so I don't really care. Like, I'm beyond I mean, yeah, I really don't care. Like, it's like I said, so in previous things, it's just it's just average, and I'm not unlike say like I just yeah, I don't really care. I mean, if I did care, I still probably wouldn't really care that much. Like, obviously, it is like, but it's not that it's not that it's like Megan Thee Stallion. It's just like, I mean, the whole. I mean, you know my opinion. The whole General Mao thing has, deteriorated in quality. I'm not saying there aren't some good stuff that still comes out, but in general. So, like, I'm not, like I say, if I did care, like, it would just come under the same banner. But, like, I don't really care. So, like, I'm kind of just like, yeah, like, yeah, I just don't really care. Like, I mean, I know, like you say, there's been a lot of backlash and stuff, but like I say, I'm not really into it, so it doesn't matter to me. But obviously, for you, when you're like, you're very much a fan, it must be quite annoying for you, I guess.
Yeah. I know what you're saying, and I think the fact that these shows have sort of dragged you out of being like you say, you just don't care anymore. I think it's quite sad to see that, and particularly, I just think this recent episode will have just emphasized that more than anything.
Yeah,
Seen a lot of I understand that this was how She-Hulk was done in the comics, and this is a lot of her character. But for me, when there's so much potential with this show, you could almost do something just like X-Files with it, like a different cameo each week, and it takes on a different story and is something interesting. And to go this route, just
yeah. I think
I can see why
I
it
think
didn't appeal.
that's the other thing. Like that, I mean, like I say, it doesn't really matter that obviously it's like Megan Thee Stallion was in it and stuff, but just the actual episode in general, like it was just meh. Like I say, I didn't really care. I don't really care for it. Like, it was just kind of there. Like, and like, I mean, you were saying before the the podcast, like obviously it is like, will it be in 9 episodes? It is sort of, I guess that it felt like it's a little bit of dragging it out a bit too much, because obviously they're trying to make 9 episodes, and it's very much like just a nothing episode basically. Um, So yeah.
No, that's all right. No,
I'm
that's
I'm not really that fussed. Like say like I say, I don't really care. But I can understand for someone like yourself who's a fan, it can be quite annoying.
yeah, absolutely. And I think you summarised that quite nicely. Well, Brad, we'd like to hear from you today as well. So starting not only with your thoughts on Megan Thee Stallion appearing and being 50% of the plot, but in that episode in general, were there any highlights for you? Any moments you can sort of look forward to the next show coming out next Thursday and just think, do you know what? I am excited.
I don't know about excited, but the little 30 seconds at the end where you heard the name Thunderball get mentioned was probably the first time that my eyes went from this watching the episode to, oh, actually, what was that? Thunderball? Oh, that could lead to a few things. That might save this show, because all the little quirks and all the little nice little fun things they did in the first two episodes to kind of get you in and go, all right, I'll give it a chance because it's a little bit quirky, it's a little bit everything, and they just mashed it together in one absolute mess of a pie. And I do say, unfortunately, being a fan of not just the Hulk, but obviously the She-Hulk story as well, I was just really disappointed in this episode. They couldn't decide whether they wanted to tell a funny court story or push Abomination's story. They tried to tell 3 stories in 17 minutes of screen time, because we know how Disney milk it. It takes 2 minutes for an episode to load in, and then the last 4 minutes of what you're actually seeing is end credits. So you've got about 12 minutes of acting. They tried to do 2 storylines, 17 breaking the fourth wall. So like, God, we're even bored of Deadpool doing it, and he doesn't even do it that much in the entire movie. Stop with the fourth wall now. I don't care if it's part of persona. You've played it to death in 3 episodes. I think she did 3 in the space of a minute and a half. Like, we get it. We like a fourth wall break as a shock. Move on, get over it. And they need to get a focus point. They need to stick to that focus point, because this pointless second storyline had no interest in me until they did a 30-second cameo where She-Hulk appeared in the courthouse. It's like, is anyone really bothered about her job at this moment? In the greatest respect, she's doing her job for a case. So why not focus the 12 minutes we actually get of decent television with focus on that? Because realistically, we got told, oh, look at that. The doctor that can travel through time was late to tell you that he did it himself. And then they just believed him. There was no compelling storyline. There was no twist and tail. It was, I have to agree with someone who's saying, She-Hulk's not really the mare for them. And I feel like him, because I was so up for this being really well. And the first 2 episodes, I was like, well, okay, see where it goes. Literally clutching at straws, saying that the word Thunderbolt was the only reason I went, oh, for this whole episode. I got bored. And that's 12 minutes I managed to get bored of watching it. And it was a real shame, because I was really hoping this was going to be action-packed for the 12 minutes you get from Disney.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting to hear, because I think listening to you there, you are like myself in that you tend to give Marvel the benefit of the doubt. Obviously, when a show comes out that gets a lot of backlash like this, you kind of, your instinct is to defend it. And like you say, with the first 2 episodes, it was interesting, it was quirky, but in a good sense, where it was funny and you could appreciate the style that they were going for with like a sitcom. But then with this episode, you were mentioning before we started this podcast that you just want them to get into it now. Like we've had the jokes. It doesn't need to be crammed down our throats for the entirety of the episode, as short as it is, like you said. And especially when we've been teased so many things in the trailers and we've been told that this is a cameo show. Obviously, they played that for irony, as you mentioned, breaking the fourth wall again. But we've been told that this is a cameo show, and that's part of the main appeal, because while She-Hulk is a relatively large character in the comics, it's not got that sort of mass appeal that the Avengers does, for instance. So we need the cameos and we need the world building and we need more of it fast. So I guess that sort of tails into my next question, which obviously, Ben, I know your general thing at the moment is to be pessimistic and you don't really care too much, so you're not that opinionated. But like Brad mentioned, we heard the word Thunderbolt. We had the scene at the end where they're trying to steal her blood, and I've spoken to my friend Harry about this, and his little theory was that the leader could potentially come into the show. One of Hulk's nemesis is from the comics, and he obviously appears at the end of the Incredible Hulk as well. And whether there's a leader cameo or potentially even Wilson Fisk with the introduction of Daredevil coming soon, hopefully. Is there any way that they can sort of salvage this? And you're thinking, yeah, do you know what? That could be really interesting in the final 6 episodes of the show.
I'm not sure, to be honest. Like, I mean, like you know, there's still 6 episodes to go, so they could, but also the 6 episodes to go, so they might not. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you know, there obviously is the potential for them to do something with that, but also if it follows the same trend, like maybe not. I'm sure the Daredevil episode, whenever that is, will be cool. Because it's Daredevil. But yeah, in terms of like, you know, the other things, it might not even be resolved in the series, because obviously everything's disconnected. It might be that a film 2 years time that like brings that up. You know what I mean? Like, so it might not be it might not be a thing for, you know, they might not recover it in that series in the series. It might be recovered in a couple of years' time in the film, you know what I mean? So I don't know. You know, I mean, you know, obviously, like say, there's the potential there, but also there's the potential for them not to. So, you know, yeah, it's one of those ones, really.
I get that. I think, Brad, I'll pass over to you as well, because obviously I think we know by now that Ben is fairly nonplussed about this, but is there anything for you that you just think, do you know what, whether it is Daredevil or anything else in the show which is keeping you tuning in? Because that's the thing that Disney are trying to do, right? Bring us back every week. So is there anything for you besides Thunderbolt being mentioned? Is there anything for you that you go, okay, yeah, when this comes, I'm going to be excited?
Maybe if it starts mixing in its more serious episodes, because I get the feeling that the first, you know, series is 9 episodes, and I feel like they're trying to show you almost like a clip snippet of a 180-minute round movie with how they're doing it. If they're going to do that, then they've got to look at the projects they've done. They've got to look at maybe how Love and Thunder has taken a bit tongue-in-cheek. People said the same about Doctor Strange, and it does seem a bit of a fad for these new movies to make them a bit light-hearted, but then have the serious moment. This is it. I think you've had so much of the fun and you've pushed it. You've now got to maybe start this episode off a little bit serious. People, when they tune in like mundanely, to go, oh well, I'm going to see it through to the end because I'm a Hulk fan. And even if someone's going, right, this it, if this doesn't grip me, I ain't bothering with it. And it starts off, and all of a sudden you're like, hold on a minute, who's this? Who's this? You know, they've not taken 17 minutes to get to, oh, my name's just called Thunderbolt, and I've actually got nothing to do with what you thought it was, or something daft like that, because that's what the show can be quite a bit, as it seems at times. If we actually see maybe a really in-depth telling of the story, and then you find a way to get a bit more serious, because I think it just needs to be dialed down in such a dramatic way. That's the only way you're going to capture the audience. If you maybe catch everybody by surprise, they're so used to such a mundane, slow, quirky, chirpy start to every episode, which we've seen. Imagine if they maybe miss a trick and flip it. Have She-Hulk fighting Red Hulk and just be have audience just be like, whoa, where's that coming from? And then she does this clever little thing. She's like, well, let's see how we got here then. I know it's Deadpool in, I know it's what they've done before, but it's what keeps the audiences in seats. If you played that for a movie, after about 30 minutes, your bum's going to get itchy. You're going to be thinking about leaving the cinema. But if they do, the next scene is bang action, you're like, well, I did not see that coming from this laugh of a joke. I think they need to make sure the next episode smacks differently in terms of drop the fourth wall, apart from maybe if they do it that way with the rewind and we get to the point of them fighting. But just shock your audience like you're good at. That's one thing Marvel is usually good at, even in a TV series. You know, they've got to take a Loki approach. Look at Loki and some of the more successful short stories they've had. They've had that shock value. I mean, WandaVision was absolutely brilliant, and I'm not the biggest fan of Wanda and Vision as part of the Avengers. Like, I you know, kind of like Ben with this, don't care really. But I watched that and I was like, actually, no, what fair play. They did a job. They kept me interested to the whole thing. And you've got to have that factor, and then you've got to go with it, and you've got to then get that balance. So don't do that in the next episode. We ain't seen a season 2. I just don't know how they recover from it.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. And I think it was really interesting what you said about them needing not just something to sort of just snap you out of it, but needing to maybe touch some of the darker tones, because that's what makes the lightheartedness so much better. We saw, obviously, I think the most pertinent example of that is Thor in Avengers Endgame. You get the funny side, but then you get the reasoning behind the funny side, and it resonates so much more. And that was probably one of my favorite moments from the series so far, was in episode 2 when Blonsky is explaining his own perspective as like why he's actually the hero of his own story, which is what it is not what anybody's thought about for like the last 14 years since Incredible Hulk was released. And then you look at it from that perspective, and it's a much more serious tone, and then it allows for the lightheartedness to come in after that. So yeah, I think something along those lines would just be very beneficial to the show going forward. And as you say, season 2 has much more chance of happening if they make a drastic change like that. I think that was very well put.
What it sounds like from what what I'm hearing, like from like what I'm listening to you to, that I mean, I don't know what they're going to do in these next few episodes, but what it sounds like to me is that the series is lacking a villain. That's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah.
What you're saying basically. So yeah, like I say, I don't know what they're going to do with these next few episodes, or what they're, you know, where they're going to go with it. But that's what it sounds like to me anyway. Like, very much a villain.
Yeah, and even if you only know the movie, the 10 Rings, and you don't know it, you already know Abomination isn't exactly the same Abomination we remember from the movie. So no one that knows an inkling about it was never going to be fooled into a double cross on this. Now they might do that later on, but they weren't going to do that from the instant because it was just way too obvious. But yeah, they definitely need a mainstay villain, and if Thunderbolt's going to lead to that, it needs to be something dramatic in the next episode that's not revealed on the 17th minute and we're already switched off.
Yeah, completely agree. Yeah, completely agree. And I think with regards to Abomination in particular, I would be surprised if we actually see him for the rest of the season. I think his story arc was short and sweet, a nice cameo to draw in the Hulk fans and say, look, we brought this guy back. I know you last saw him 12 years ago before Shang-Chi, but here he is again. We're going to get more backstory and see where he ends up. And I'll hold my hands up if I'm wrong, but I don't think we'll see him again for the rest of the season. But yeah, anyway, so this wasn't the most upbeat, interesting, entertaining episode that Marvel's ever produced. But I think I speak for myself, but I think the three of us are all going to keep watching the show, correct?
Oh, I'm going to keep watching it.
Yeah, Ben's being held on by the Blue Podcast and the Gradient Show, but Brad, I think like myself, is just hoping and praying that it gets good eventually. And I think that's what all of us are holding out for. But yeah, I think we'll wrap it up there, guys. Unless you have anything else you want to talk about.
Not for this episode. It was
not for this. Yeah,
it was. Yeah, definitely.
Maybe we'll have an hour-long spectacular when Daredevil finally shows up. Who knows? But anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed our review of the episode. If you actually did enjoy the episode, make sure you drop it in the comments because we'd love to know. And if you enjoyed our review, then please make sure to like and subscribe. That'd be great. Thank you very much. All right, we'll see you next week for episode 4.